Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are attempting something, well, quite ambitious. We're trying to read perhaps the most complex, frustrating, and deeply personal document you'll ever encounter. Your own dreams.
That's right.
We're diving into Sigmund Freud's foundational text, The Interpretation of Dreams, or Die Traumdeutung, a book that came out right at the turn of the century, 1899, technically dated 1900, really kickstarting modern psychoanalysis.
The landmark text, no question.
And our mission today, it isn't just to, stem the history. We want to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding why Freud famously called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. The core idea we're unpacking is pretty revolutionary even now. Your dreams aren't just random brain noise. Freud argued they're calculated, they're coded messages.
Exactly. Messages containing things like repressed desires, maybe conflicts, needs, things you actively hide from yourself when you're awake.
It's hard to stress just how radical this was back then, right?
Oh, completely. Before Freud, science largely ignored dreams or, treated them as just pure fantasy, meaningless. He came along and said, wait, the fact that they seem nonsensical, that's the proof they mean something.
How so? That seems counterintuitive.
Well, he saw it as an internal system. It's designed primarily to keep you asleep by managing anxiety. The confusion is part of the function.
Okay, let's unpack that function, that purpose. Freud's main idea, as our sources highlight, is that dreams are essentially wish fulfillment. But that sounds a bit simple today, doesn't it? Are we just talking about, wanting things, pleasure?
It definitely goes deeper than just simple pleasure urges. You should think of a wish, less like wanting a new car and more like an attempt to resolve psychological tension.
Oh, okay. Tension.
Yeah. These are often desires or unresolved conflicts, frequently rooted way back in childhood, that your conscious mind decided were unacceptable, or maybe just too anxiety-provoking.
So things you pushed away.
Exactly. And since just admitting these powerful drives, these wishes, would likely jolt you awake, the mind can't let them surface directly. It has to disguise them.
And that's where the code comes in.
That's the code. The unconscious mind dresses up the true meaning using symbols, distortions, all sorts of tricks. It's working overtime while you sleep, basically, to keep these difficult truths hidden from the censoring part of yourself.
Right, the censor. To really get that, we need Freud's map of the mind, don't we? Who is the censor? Who's guarding the gate?
Yeah, the mental geography is key.
Yeah.
Freud divided the mind broadly into three areas. You've got the conscious, that's what you're aware of right this second. Your thoughts, perceptions, simple enough.
Okay.
Then there's the preconscious. Think of this like accessible memory. You're not thinking about your best friend's birthday right now, but you could probably recall it pretty easily if you needed to. It's available.
Got it. Like RAM.
Sort of, yeah. But the real engine, the hidden powerhouse, according to Freud, is the unconscious. This is the deep reservoir. It holds repressed memories, primal fears, instincts, and those big, often socially unacceptable desires we were talking about.
And dreams start there, deep down.
Dreams are generated there, yes.
Yes.
In the unconscious. But as they bubble up, trying to reach your awareness, they bump into that psychic censor, that tension, that conflict between the raw desire from the unconscious and the internal critic. That's what creates the bizarre symbolic stuff you remember when you wake up.
I see. So the unconscious pushes the wish up, the preconscious acts like a bouncer trying to keep things orderly, and the dream has to disguise itself to slip past.
Precisely. It needs to operate on two levels.
Which leads us right to maybe the most crucial distinction for anyone trying to understand Freud on dreams.
Absolutely. Manifest versus latent content. It's fundamental.
Right, break that down. Manifest first.
The manifest content is the surface story. It's what you actually remember seeing and telling someone about later. I dreamt I was flying over my old school, but the school was made of cheese. That's the manifest content, the weird narrative.
The literal recall.
Yes. But the real goal, the psychoanalytic detective work, is digging into the latent content.
Which is?
That's the hidden psychological meaning.
Yeah.
The true repressed wish or conflict that motivated the dream. It's the underlying reason the censor felt the need to disguise things in the first place. The root cause.
Can we use an example? Make it more concrete?
Sure. The classic one often used is dreaming about climbing a steep, maybe icy mountain. That image, the climb, that's your manifest content, what you saw.
Okay.
But let's say through talking about it, through free association and therapy, we uncover that the feeling of the struggle, the ambition, the fear of falling, it all connects to your intense drive for promotion at work, or maybe a deep-seated fear of failure. or depending on the person's history, it can even link to sexual ambition. That underlying struggle or desire, that's the latent content.
So the mind turned the raw feeling ambition, fear, into a picture. Climbing a mountain.
Exactly. It converted the raw, possibly anxiety-producing ambition into the safer symbolic image of the mountain climb.
But here's the big question, the one critics always raise. How do we know the mountain isn't just a mountain? Maybe you just went hiking. Isn't it subjective?
That is the absolute core tension. You're right. And Freud insisted the meaning isn't arbitrary, but it is deeply personal. That's why those dream dictionaries, pretty useless according to this theory.
Okay.
The analyst, or even just you thinking about your own dream, relies on free association. You talk about the mountain. What does steep make you think of? Why icy? What feelings come up? The idea is that every element reflects something about your inner emotional life. The decoding key isn't universal. It's held by you, the dreamer.
The personalization is critical. Okay, so this whole process, this transformation from the hidden wish, latent, to the weird story manifest, Freud gave it a name, right?
He did. He called it dream work. Think of it as the set of encryption techniques the mind uses while you sleep.
Encryption, I like that. So the mind is actively coding the message.
Precisely. Dream work is the disguise mechanism. You could even think of it in modern terms, maybe, as cognitive strategies for managing anxiety and compressing information. It's quite sophisticated.
So what are the main techniques, the main parts of this dream work?
Freud outlined several key mechanisms. Let's maybe touch on the big ones.
Yeah, let's do that. First one is condensation. Sounds like making things smaller.
It is. Essentially mental compression. Condensation is where the mind merges multiple ideas, feelings, memories, or even different people into a single dream image.
Okay, like how?
Well, you might dream of one person, right? But that person has your mother's critical voice, wears your boss's jacket, and is standing in your childhood bedroom. That single figure is condensed. It's packed with meaning from multiple sources.
Wow, so it's economical, packing a lot into one symbol.
Very economical. Then you have displacement. This one seems really important for tricking that sensor you mentioned.
How does displacement work?
Displacement is vital. It shifts the emotional energy, the intensity, from an important or threatening subject onto something trivial or seemingly unrelated in the dream.
Example.
Let's say you feel intense, maybe unacceptable anger towards your father. The dream sensor won't let that through directly. So instead, you might dream about being absolutely furious because you stubbed your toe. Or maybe you dream of violently kicking a garbage can.
So the feeling gets expressed, the anger is there, but the target is switched to something safer.
Exactly. The emotional charge is released, but the focus is diverted from the true, perhaps dangerous source of that feeling. Keeps things stable.
Clever. What's next? Symbolism. This is the one everyone thinks of with Freud, right? Snakes and tunnel.
That's the popular image, yeah. Symbolism is definitely a big part. It's how abstract concepts, things like sexuality, birth, death, conflict, get represented by concrete images.
So specific images tend to mean specific things.
Freud suggested some common patterns, yes, like houses often symbolizing the self or the body, water often relating to birth, journeys, climbing, weapons frequently having sexual connotations. But again, while there might be common symbols, their specific meaning is always filtered through the dreamer's personal experience. It's not a fixed dictionary.
Always back to the individual. Okay, what else? There's projection. How's that different from displacement? Sounds similar.
They're both defenses, but projection works a bit differently in dreams. It involves taking your own unacceptable feelings or desires and attributing them to other people within the dream.
So if I'm feeling guilty,
you might dream that everyone around you is accusing you of something. Or if you're struggling with, say, hidden hostility, you dream that others are being aggressive or critical towards you. It flips the script, externalizing the internal conflict.
Putting your stuff onto others in the dream world.
And one more quick one. Secondary revision. This isn't really part of the initial disguise. It's more like clean up.
Clean up?
Yeah, when you wake up and try to remember the dream, your conscious mind kicks in and tries to smooth things over. It rearranges the bizarre, fragmented scenes to make the story seem a little more logical, a bit more coherent than it actually was. It's like tidying up the weird dream file before presenting it.
So even remembering the dream involves a bit of editing?
A final layer of making sense of the nonsense, you could say.
Okay, this is a really complex system. Condensation, displacement, symbolism, projection, secondary revision, all working together. Now, how did Freud actually use this? He wasn't just theorizing. He was treating patients, right? dealing with neuroses.
Absolutely. He was famously his own test subject, analyzing countless of his own dreams, but also, crucially, his patients' dreams. His famous dream of Irma's injection is a prime example.
Ah, yes, the Irma dream. Why is that one so important?
Well, Freud used it in the book to explicitly walk through how these dream work mechanisms actually combine in a real dream. It wasn't just theoretical, he showed it in action.
What was the gist of it? What did it reveal?
Okay, so in short, Freud had been treating a patient, Irma, and wasn't happy with the progress. He felt a bit guilty, maybe professionally insecure. In the dream, he examines Irma, finds a serious-looking medical issue. But significantly, other people get involved in the dream examination.
Like who?
Friends, colleagues, even his wife sort of blend into the scene, offering opinions, confusing the diagnosis. This, Freud argued, was condensation multiple people mashed together. And crucially, it allowed him to perform displacement.
How so?
By making the diagnosis confusing and involving others, the dream effectively shifted the blame for Irma's condition away from Freud himself. It subtly pointed fingers elsewhere. The dream fulfilled his wish. I'm not responsible for her lack of progress or suffering.
So it relieved his anxiety about his competence.
Exactly. It showed dreams weren't just random pictures. They were active psychological strategies, defenses working to manage difficult feelings and fulfill hidden wishes.
And the way to unravel this was purely through free association, just talking about the dream elements.
That was the primary method. Guiding the patient or yourself to speak freely about each image, each feeling, each person in the dream. The idea is that these associations will eventually lead back from the manifest symbols to the latent thoughts and the original wish.
And you mentioned earlier this often leads back to childhood.
Very often, yes. Freud believed that many of those core wishes and conflicts, the ones powerful enough to need disguising in dreams, originated in unresolved childhood experiences. Those intense childhood emotions, the desires, the fears we had to repress because they were overwhelming or unacceptable back then. They don't just vanish.
They linger.
They linger in the unconscious, and they pop back up, disguised in dreams, but also sometimes in neurotic symptoms, slips of the tongue, anxieties in waking life. Ignoring them doesn't make them go away. It just forces the mind to find these roundabout ways of expressing them.
It's undeniable this work completely changed how we think about the mind. The idea that most of our behavior is driven by things we're not even aware of, that's huge.
Foundational for psychology.
But let's be honest, it's faced a lot of criticism over the years. Modern psychology has moved on in many ways. What are the main weaknesses people point to?
Oh, the critiques are significant and important to acknowledge. While the insights into symbolism and the unconscious were groundbreaking, there are two major issues usually raised. First, the intense, almost obsessive focus on sexual themes.
Right, everything comes back to sex or aggression, seemingly.
Critics argue that reflects Freud's specific time and place turn-of-the-century Vienna, a sexually repressed society. They question if that focus is universally applicable across all cultures and times. It feels dated to many.
And the second major issue.
Perhaps more critically for modern science. The whole theory is fundamentally based on subjective interpretation, because decoding the dream relies entirely on the therapist and patient talking, on free association. There's no objective way to test it.
You can't prove it in a lab.
Exactly. We can't empirically verify that the mountain really represents ambition in that specific dream for that specific person. That lack of scientific testability makes it very difficult to integrate neatly into, say, modern cognitive neuroscience models. It remains somewhat outside empirical validation.
Understood. Yet, despite those valid critiques, the influence is just immense. The language of the unconscious, repression, defense mechanisms, it's part of our cultural vocabulary now. So, wrapping this up, what are the absolute key takeaways for someone listening today? What should they hold on to from Freud's dream code?
I think there are three core ideas worth remembering. First, the unconscious is a bigger deal than you think. Just accept that a large chunk of your feelings, your choices, your reactions are probably shaped by hidden currents you're not consciously aware of. That's a humbling but powerful realization.
Okay, number one, the unconscious rules.
Number two, symbols are personal. Forget the generic dream dictionaries. The meaning of an image in your dream, a snake, a house, following its power, comes from your personal history, your associations, your unresolved stuff. It's your code, not a universal one.
Meaning is individual. Got it. And third.
And finally, maybe most importantly, real self-understanding requires honesty. The potential reward of looking at your dreams or just your patterns in life is deeper self-insight. But that insight, Freud would argue, only comes if you're willing to face some of those uncomfortable, anxiety-producing motives and conflicts that your conscious mind prefers to keep hidden. It takes courage.
Facing the hidden stuff. Okay, so if Freud is right, if our dreams are constantly weaving together our current worries with old emotional wounds, merging past and present into these disguised stories, then maybe the path to understanding ourselves isn't about trying to forget or avoid our history. Maybe it's about learning to read the language, learning to decode the stories that our unconscious is trying to tell us night after night. Perhaps the greatest detective story you'll ever solve is the one happening inside your own head every time you close your eyes.